That's something that's really cool about this community is we're getting to know each other, and we're kind of getting to know like all the awesomeness that is in other people's brains. There's so much just beauty and wonder in each other, in each other. Um, so we have like nature journaler um, diversity, like biodiversity. Like you're kind of going like I'm just kind of you're looking around like oh wow, like you're really stepping up and you're bringing the conservation, and then over there's Anne, and she's like stepping up with the science, and then you know we've got Susan's gonna like drop some Lepidopteran curiosity on it, and like everybody's bringing. Rebecca's kind of helping us kind of wrap our brains in words. You also are awesome, right? And I want to just encourage you. Yes, you. I'm talking to you, right? Let your freak flag fly, and you're going to find that there's a place for that in this sort of nature journaling world. It's just a celebration of all the beautiful, wonderful things that are kind of bubbling up in front of us. And if there's something that's exciting to you, it's going to be really exciting to everybody else. So please, just go deep down a rabbit hole and share that. So uh, again, Mary Oliver's poem, Instructions for Living a Life, 3 lines. If you've got it memorized, here's my challenge. You can type it into the chat right now. Bam, send it out. It's 3 lines. It's a short one. You can memorize it. And it's really, really, really good. And it makes so much sense. Um, and yeah, that's right. Rebecca says, so it's just this short, so 3 lines. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it, right? And that's what we're doing. It's not about how things look on your page. It's not about having a pretty looking page. The page is a tool in service of paying attention and being astonished and telling about it, right? And if the focus becomes too much on that tool, then it's less about the world that we're in. It's about that experience with the world. And so don't let fear of like, I'm not good at spelling, my handwriting's not good, I don't like this way these drawings are turning out. I struggled with learning my multiplication tables in elementary school, so I am going to really kind of keep my light under this bushel over here. Um, it's not about how pretty things look on the page. It's about having a a deeper experience, a deeper connection with the world around us, and letting ourselves be even more astonished and awed by whatever we see. Um, Rebecca, thank you for sharing the poem. Um, so today, let's talk about shadows. All right, so if you're trying to draw any shape, any form, the shadows are really, really useful parts of that. The shadows are going to be what helps somebody who's looking, well, essentially you're trying to get somebody to look at what you've drawn, and you're going to fool them into thinking that there are 3 dimensions. You want to sort of show the shape, the volume of the form that's in front of you. And shadows are really, really useful for showing shape and form. And there are a number of kind of fundamental ways that artists have observed that light behaves. Light, in many situations, behaves in certain ways, and um, when you know that way that it's going to behave, you can use that to both look at the object that's in front of you and kind of go like, oh, right in there, there's your little core shadow. I see you, right? But you might have totally missed it if you weren't aware that it was there. And the other thing is that if you're drawing something and you're either doing it from imagination or you just need more tools to describe the planes and the volume of an object, then being aware of this little toolkit, you can sort of pull those out. So both in looking at the real thing and just coming up with stuff out of your head, understanding these fundamental ways of the way that light plays on things makes a big difference. And so we're going to start with some kind of fundamentals of light, but then I had some special requests of looking at white objects. And we're going to put some shadows on some white objects and figure out how to do that without turning them muddy or blotchy. We'll put some shadows on white objects and we'll call it a day. But I think it's going to be oh, Christod says I call it light logic. Oh, that is great. That's good. So we're going to look at some light logic. Let's look at kind of the basic ideas, and there are some terms that are kind of useful to get under our belts, and then we'll go from there. So I am going to change my microphone to across the room, and I'm going to go over here. Oops. Hold on just a moment. All right. Ivea, are you seeing my desktop?
I'm only seeing your desk with your animal skull on it.
Okay, animal skull. That's we're then on the same page. Right, here is desk with animal skull. And light is coming in this side. And I've got a few objects here. Sort of a filtered soft light coming in through my window. And what's going on is the light is coming in this side, giving you a light side and a dark side. And because this, instead of being a really round object like this, right? So notice on my stuffy that, you know, here there's a hard line between light and dark. This is very bright, this is some little bit middle tone, and this is dark. And that's because this object here has planes. So planes, hold on a moment. Where is my, aha. Surfaces that are pointing towards the light catch bright light. Ones that are pointing away from the light are dark. Ones that point somewhere in between those are somewhere in between those. So this is the brightest plane. These ones middle tone. This right over here, I've got really dark tones. On this rock here, I have this plane here that is catching sort of a middle tone, a little bit brighter on this side, and you can see a shadow over here. You see the same thing going on with the shell. You see the same thing happening here. On this round object, you sort of see that there's a brighter side over here, and somewhere here we're fading into darkness, and here we're clearly in the dark side. Right? Now, let's make a kind of, let's get clear on some terms together. So I'm going to pull out my little friend, the salamander. I'm going to draw a sphere. All right. So I'm lightly sketching in a little sphere for myself. And what I'm going to do now, and here's my pencil,
is I'm going to divide this sphere up into several different zones. Here, I'm going to say that my light is coming from this corner up here. So the light's a little bit behind us. So I'm drawing in a little directional arrow here. So that means that this surface that is facing this is going to be in brighter light. So if this light kind of came in here, it's going to hit sort of the center of its brightness is going to be somewhere in here. And as I go out from that, you can sort of imagine that where the light is going to hit, we're kind of going out in these rings. If the light source isn't really close to this, it's going to be taking the sphere and making it half in sun and half in light. So if, imagine sort of diagrammatically, light is coming in from the side of this, sunlight kind of comes in as sets of parallel rays because it's so far away. Instead of sort of fanning out like that, sunlight comes in parallel. So if this were an object being hit by sunlight, and the sunlight was coming in from the side, you would have two sides. You would have the light side, and you'd have the shadow side. And then there is the line between them. The line between them has a special name. Thank you, Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is called the terminator. So the terminator is the boundary between the light and the dark. And so I'm going to put my, if you're looking at an object, the light's just coming in from the side, then you see this half moon shape. And just like looking at the moon, if the light is, hold on, I'm going to draw a little axis along here. If the light is kind of coming in from an angle, you are going to get either a crescent of darkness. If I rotate that light around a little bit more, how about that? I remembered to move my tablet all by myself. I'm going to draw a little line through here and make a little crescent going this way. You can either have a crescent of darkness or a crescent of light. That will be where you are. So here's my light side. Here is my, so the light, the shadow side, those can have different shapes. So on this, actually I'm going to make my little drawing up here a little bit cleaner. I'm going to put in my terminator as a little crescent in here. That means I'm going to have to move my light will be coming in from a slightly different angle. So here's my light side and my dark side. And what I'm going to do is I am then going to, in this area where the light is hitting more directly, that is going to create a zone in here that will be brighter. And so if this is an object just floating out in space, in here on my dark side, I'm going to make this dark. So I'm just going to put in some hatching lines in here to fill this in dark. And this area that is kind of coming out here on this side of the terminator, this area up in here will be not as bright as the area that is the closest to the light. And in fact, I'm going to sort of feather this edge, kind of blend this edge a little bit. So right now, I have an area up here that is my brightest, and then I'm fading into this darker zone, being the brightest under the light here. This zone up here where it is the lightest under the light, this has a specific name. This is called the center light. So the center light is again, that's the area that is right underneath your light. One moment. Now, so I've got my center light, I have my shadow, the shadow side, and this is the shadow that is here on this object is called an object shadow. So it's the shadow that is on the object is the object shadow. Now, this area here on the light side that is getting closer to the center light, this is the halftone. Now, if my object is sort of matte, that is that it is not it's not reflective, and my object is floating out somewhere in space, these are my three zones. I've got my center light, brightest towards the object, my halftone, and my object shadow. If, however, there is another object that is near it, say an object back here, perhaps even the surface that it's sitting on, light will pass my object, hit some reflective surface back here, and bounce back onto this side. And what that does is it creates a zone of lighter area here on this shadow side. So you would think that this object would be the darkest, darker and darker and darker as you get out towards the edge. But if your object is, if there's something that casts light back into it, then this zone of reflected light or bounce light will make a little bit of a glow in the dark side. So let's actually just take a look at that for a moment. Here's an object, and you can see the here is the center light side, here is some halftone. Over here we're in the shadow side. If I take a bright white object and I put that near the shadow side, watch what happens in this shadow here as our little friend gets closer to it. See that reflected light come into the object? So if there's a reflecting object here in our, you can see that little glow pop into the shadow side. That's your reflected light. But of course, if this were a planet floating around in space, there's nothing to bounce to reflect that light. But most objects, you know, they're sitting around on the ground. This reflected light is going to be part of what you see. And so I'm now going to get a little blending tool here, a little paper blending tool. And I'm going to smudge some of these lines together. And I'm not finding my paper blending tool. So I will make one. All right, I'm going to take a little piece of paper here, and I am going to roll it tightly, and I'm going to then twist it. There we go. And this fancy little tool, I hope, will do me well. So I'm going to start here in the middle, and I'm going to go out. And now that we've got this reflected light in there, the reflected light is not going to be, here I've got my reflected brighter than my center light. I want my center light to be a little bit brighter than my reflected. Right? Maybe my reflected light needs a little bit of blending into it so it's not quite as in your face. There we go. I also want to, at this point out one other feature of our shadow that is kind of coming in here, and that is, if you look across here, there's a dark band. It's a dark band right at the edge of the terminator. So that is my core shadow. So that is my core shadow, and the core shadow it is in the margin between, and we can get this, the half tone, we're past the terminator, it's on the shadow side of the terminator, but it's far enough away from the reflected light that you get this little band of darkness that is right in there. So you'd expect to see then this little band of darkness in there. And the last little piece here, this final one is really, really interesting. I am going to take my eraser, let's imagine for a moment that this is a really reflective material. If it's matte, this won't happen, but if it's a very reflective material, there will be the center light. That is the place where the light from is hitting most directly. And where the center light is a relationship between the direction that the plane is facing and the light. Where the center light is has nothing to do with where I am sitting. The center light is where is the actual brightest part of this object, the part that is getting the most light. That is the center light. So that's the part that is getting the most light. In addition to the center light, and for the longest time I thought that these things were identical, but they're not. In addition to the center light, there is the highlight, and the highlight is different than the center light. The highlight is brighter than the center light. And here's the crazy thing about it. The highlight is not located in the middle of the center light unless you are the light source. If you are the source of light, then whenever you look at an object, the highlight will be in the middle of the center light. But what the highlight is actually do you remember in physics class learning about reflections? So if light is coming in here at some angle, that's our angle of incidence, the angle that the light is coming in. When it hits this reflective surface, it bounces off that at the same angle. So the angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection. This angle is the same. So if the light is coming in at a steep angle, it is reflecting at a steep angle. That's the way that reflections work. Now, this end is the light source.
Oh, Jack, I said, sorry, I think you might be off of our page.
Sorry. So yeah, so here we have angle of light coming in, angle of light going out. Angle of light coming in from the sun here, it's higher, right? It's reflecting up at a steeper angle. So this angle here is equal to this angle is equal to this angle. This is the angle of incidence and the angle of reflection. This is where your eye is. So whenever you're seeing a reflection, that means light is coming in at a particular angle. It is bouncing off this object and going to you. So the reflection has to do, as you move your position, the angle that you see, the location of the reflection will start to change. Reflections will change as you move around an object or if you move the light source. So that means that often the reflected light, you will sometimes see the highlight kind of close to the center light, but it will be at some point. So here's my highlight, and it is not the same as the center light. This was a big eye-opener for me. Generally, if you are looking at an object and you are the sun, we're gonna come down here. If you're looking at this object and you are the sun, your center light is going to be right in the middle of the object, and the highlight is going to be right in the middle of that, because imagine you're the light and you're going down, you're hitting that spot, right? The light is coming down, hitting that spot, and then bouncing straight back up to you. So the highlight and the center light are in the same place if you are the light source. But if I have my object like this, here's going to be the middle of the center light. The highlight will be fairly, if most of it is in sun, the highlight will be here somewhere close to that center light. But the more that the center light moves around this object, so for instance, if the center light ends up being actually the center of that on the other side of the object, so there the center light, you actually aren't seeing the middle of the center light in this sort of a position. Your highlight is going to be, it's going to be somewhere in here, but that's really far away from the center of the center light. So your highlight position is going to be different than the center light. Expect it to be kind of close to where the center light is if your object is mostly in sun. It'll be far away from that if your object is mostly in shadow. So just a couple other terms. We have our object shadow. We also have, if sunlight is coming down like this, I'm just going to draw a line down here, the direction that my sunlight is coming. Where that line that's tangent with the edge of the object hits the ground, that's going to be the area where the cast shadow of the object is sitting. So this is the object shadow with its core. This is the cast shadow. And the final little piece of this is that the part right here underneath this object, it's really hard for light to get down into that little nook, that cranny. So it's darker right down in there. That is the occlusion shadow. So you've got all these different parts of a shadow. You've got your center light and your highlight, and those are different. You have your halftone and the object shadow. Part of the object shadow, in the object shadow zone, you have the core and the reflected light. On the cast shadow, on the ground, or whatever object it is near, and the occlusion shadow tucked up underneath the tight part of the object there. Those are your basic parts of a shadow. And so it turns out it really helps to look for these and study them in any object. Where is my center light? Where is my terminator? Where is there an object shadow? I mean, is there a core shadow that I'm seeing, a really distinct core shadow? What about my reflected light? What zones are those taking up? And as you're sketching something, then to sort of block those in. Here is this zone. Here's going to be where my terminator is. I'm seeing this over here. I'm going to leave this as reflected light. You want to look for these and map them out on whatever object you're drawing. What I used to do is just, you know, there'd be a light side and a dark side, and this would be light and just kind of shade darker in here. But I wasn't really thinking about the actual shapes of these different zones and their placement. It's going to make a difference on any object that you're looking at to spend some time thinking about it in terms of these things. Now, let's take a look at how these shapes are going to, these zones are going to bend across an object. I'm going to make a blobby. If you haven't made blobbies before, blobbies are really fun. They are just sort of a whimsical shape that that I can put down, and I'm gonna have, and you can make them sort of, you know, somewhat creature-like. Like my creature here is gonna have sort of a big blobby body. It's gonna have a big hip in here. Its head is gonna be wrapped around it, and its tail is gonna be coming down here, and it's gonna be taking a little nap. And there we are. And so I'm making this blob that has a big head in here. And then I'm going to come up on the side here, and here is my body coming around. These next lines in here are going to be a little bit, I'm going to be a little bit more careful with. On its tail, I want to think of, I'm going to have this come in, this is going to be kind of a sharp angle in here, and there's my little blobby's tail. And it's going to have kind of a big hip bulge in here. Its neck is wrapping around it. Here, and I can think of putting in sort of a few little cracks here that sort of show, actually I'll do the same thing here to suggest that this tail is kind of looped in there like that. So there's my blobby. And now what I'm going to do is put a blobby right down, a line right down the middle of blobby's back. We're kind of looking down on blobby's back a little bit. So the center of blobby's back is actually going to be right here. And as that comes in here, this part of the neck is pointing towards us. So that line is actually going to come right through the center of this space. This, if you were to slice blobby through here, you'd be looking at this area is coming straight towards you. The same thing is happening right in here. This part of the tail in here is coming straight towards you. The top of this tail is over here. The top of my head is close to here. But in here, my center line is coming through there. So you see what I'm doing? There's my center line. Once I've got blobby's center line, I'm going to start thinking about sort of blobby in terms of, here is coming across the back here. What would sort of a line that would go straight across that shape there, what angle would it be? You know, so here it's just like that. So I've got a few lines across blobby's back. Somewhere in here we go straight. And now what I'm going to, oh, and here's the top of blobby's hip. And so that means lines would be coming across like that. Now I am going to sort of, this is a rounded form, but I'm going to turn it more kind of cubist. I want to think of this as a plane on the top of blobby here, and that's going to connect with another plane here. another plane here, another. So I have here, if you imagine if I was painting a strip down Blobby's back, this is that wide strip. Here's the top of Blobby's leg. And now I'm going to, from here, we're going to kind of, the body's going to round down in here. So that means if I were to break this into more planes, sort of Blobby's kind of becoming cubist here. And what about on the side of the leg here? Oh, here's the part of the Blobby where Blobby kind of is going to turn down here. I'm going to have another plane here sort of facing down. So and this side is going to come sort of straight down and then tuck under. So what I've done is sort of made myself this geometric, here Blobby's kind of looking to me like a sleeping dinosaur. And because I have these planes, it's going to be on this form, I'll be able to think about if light, say, is coming from the back here, then where are these sort of shadow and light zones going to go on Blobby? So I'm going to now think about this in terms of those zones. I'm going to start just with the terminator. Light is coming from this backside, and it is hitting the light side. Because the light is further away from me, I mean, it is coming from the far side of the dinosaur, these big surfaces towards me are going to be in shadow. So I'm going to have this line here be kind of where my terminator is. So I'm going to put some dark shadow into here. And maybe this part of this leg is sticking out. So this is all going to be in shadow here. Maybe part of this leg is sticking out enough to catch some of that light. And what about here? We're going to put shadow in here on this side of our dinosaur's head. So here, what I've done is I just have, for my shadow, I have one kind of neutral tone. This is sort of my general sort of shadow tone for my shadow side. And now I'm going to put in, let's think about where different types of shadows are going to occur. Let's put in the core shadow. So if that's my terminator, that means I'm going to have a core shadow that is going to be right along here. And in here, I'll put that in like that. I'll put that in here. So I'm putting in a darker core shadow. I'm now going to put in a little bit of halftone above that. Because these angles are kind of bending steeply instead of being really rounded, these shadow zones are happening much more quickly. The more angular something is, the more these shadows will kind of turn on and off quickly. Down here, where this body is tucking in here and the head is in here, that's going to be a great place for an occlusion shadow, isn't it? So there's really hard for light to kind of get in here. And so that area is going to be nice and dark. Maybe dark in here. Underneath the body here, we've got where this body comes down. There's a little occlusion shadow on the ground. We're going to have a cast shadow that is sticking out from this thing. And if I make the back here, I get rid of some of these lines so we can sort of see that zone a little bit more. Let's just sort of work in there and pretend that this is a shiny dinosaur so it can have a highlight. I'm going to give myself a little bit more of a halftone zone in there. And now I'm going to grab that little blender. And what I've done is also put some tone into there so that my highlight can be spotted. So if there's a highlight in here, say some light hits here directly, I'll put a little highlight in there. I'm going to put a little highlight in here. Little highlight in here. And so that's So sort of thinking about where these different sort of zones would fall around any kind of object. The easiest thing to do when you're looking at a real object is just to notice where these zones are actually, where do you see light and dark on a real subject, and you can squint at it. But thinking about your object in terms of these basic planes that are turning at different angles and then capturing different kinds, there's different kinds of light, and those are going to interact with the different planes differentially. And that I find really kind of helps be able to carve these objects. Finally, let's take a little look at the white object. Well, let's do an egret. Let's do an egret. So when I'm drawing an egret, I like to sort of think of what is the negative shape behind its head, and what is the negative shape in front of its head. That doesn't have egret proportions. Its neck is too thick. Let's give this a little bit of trim here. The negative shape in front and in back, that's a little bit of a skinnier neck. That's better. So I'm going to turn this into an egret. Now, if I'm drawing a white bird, I can, you can get away with putting shadows in it, but you still want it to read as a white bird. So how, if you put too much...
Would you be able to...
Oh, thank you. Let me back up here. Ah, there we go. So if I... if I put shadows in here that are, I want it still to read as a white bird. And at first I'm going to do a white bird on a light background. And I think that's the hardest, because if I can make the background dark, then anything, light will be, relatively brighter if I have my background dark. But I'm going to start with this. We're going to kind of treat this bird in several different ways. As you look at the bird's feathers and features, what you want to do is to really, hold on, I'm going to turn this palette this way. I want to look for any kind of hints of color dancing in the bird. Particularly look for what are colors that are in the environment around you. If there are, if there is, blue water reflecting sky, you can get a lot of blue in your bird. If there is green foliage nearby, you can get greens reflected into your bird. So reflected light also can bring in color. Remember the little skull here, and we brought this into it, and we said like, oh, look at what your reflected light is doing. Let's see how well the stapler does. All right, you see the blue coming into the skull? Let's try it with this. That's a little bit more reflective. Here we go. So you see that this is actually bringing in a little bit of color to the object. Here, a mailing from AARP. Look at the red pop into that. Do you see how red is actually being reflected into that object? If there's something with a lot of green in it, right? I put this near it, that white object is now reflecting green. So isn't it weird that our white objects are actually going to be dancing with the colors of elements in the environment around them? So I want to really look at the bird, and I want to intentionally look for those little subtle colors. If I see them, like let's say I am getting some blues or purples into the bird, in these I'm going to be bringing blues and purples into my shadows. What I really want to be doing as I'm doing this is also really taking a careful look at making sure that I'm leaving zones of this pure white. I want that pure white paper to come through. And then I can think of, very often there'll be kind of a dance of colors in these. And so having a variety of colors in this, you can get that sense of your object reflecting back these interesting colors. So I've got some blue in here. I've got a little bit of purple in there. I'm going to go out on a limb and just make some of the purples even more purple. So I'm intentionally putting some spots of color into those shadows. Something that I'll sometimes do is use Daniel Smith Shadow Violet color. The reason I will often reach for that is that color will separate out into interesting little purples and blues, and sometimes just on its own, in addition to being kind of a neutral grayish color that works well with yellows. As it separates out, it will on its own just add a little bit of visual interest into areas. That's much, much better than, say, taking neutral tint and making a shadow that is black. Right. So these shadows that are dancing with just a little bit of, whoa, way too intense, of the colors are just so much more lively. And then what I can do is, sometimes the background is really dark, and I can take advantage of that. Let me imagine that this bird there's a really dark background here. So the minute I put that in, this is the easy way to make any bird white, is you put it against something for contrast, and then that bird now is really feeling pale because the stuff that is next to it is not. Because the stuff next to it is dark. This color that I'm putting in here is perylene green, which is this wonderful, really dark thing. Another great dark color is indanthrone blue. Can put some of that in here. So this almost black thing is indanthrone blue. And you see, put that in there, and whatever is adjacent to it feels bright. So much so that you can get away with then really putting deeper darks into a white bird and still have it read as a white bird. So for instance, if this were in the evening and there's this dark foliage behind my egret, but as I'm looking at that egret, maybe it's even a little bit backlit, and I'm thinking, you are not looking white. I know that you're a white bird, but you just don't look white to me. Then I'm going to put because I have that that dark in there, I can get away with a lot more. I'm going to leave a little bit of kind of white kind of just glowing around its edge for two reasons. One, so that my watercolor doesn't blend into the other watercolor. And also just to add a little bit of sunlight kind of shining up around those edges. But it's because this background here went dark that feels light. If I had this against a light background, it might not get the same effect. I'll show you a little exception to this. Walking across the room here, grabbing my sketchbook. Actually, yeah. So here's a sketch of an ibis. I mean, a spoonbill, a white spoonbill, at sunset, hanging out with a great blue heron, and they're both really backlit. So in this case, the spoonbill was the spoonbill. I made it really dark. The background of the water behind it, it was darker than the background water behind it. But notice also how I left this little bit of white up in here, just the color of the paper, to let this thing be just, in some places, a little bit brighter than what I was seeing. I didn't do that so much on this great blue heron that was, or not great blue heron, a gray heron that was next to it. And so that gray heron is not as effective. But on this, I'm intentionally leaving that blank paper to show through to establish that, yeah, this is a white bird, but I'm just sort of seeing it in this dark evening light. So there's a very not white egret. And if I took that dark away, it would look like a dark gray blue bird. But because that dark background is there, relative to that, it is a bright bird. That is some thoughts and ideas about
drawing shadows. We want to think about parts of shadows and look for those in objects around us. And then think about the contours of the object that we're drawing and how those shadows are going to wrap around that object. There'll be some places that'll be a little bit darker. Is that going to be reflecting, or is that going to be kind of an occlusion, kind of a little gap back in there? How am I going to play with that? And it's fun to play with a few blobbies too. You might want to just draw out a few blobbies and then turn them into sort of more cubic forms. So that will help you kind of place your shadows and see how that goes. So I hope that this was useful for you. And I'd now like to open it up to any questions or comments or thoughts. First, directly about shadows or about white birds. And then we'll turn it to just a general discussion of all things nature journaling. So if you would like to, you can use the raise hand function. I'm going to bump over to the gallery, and so I can see who's raising their hands. And you can either use the raise hand function or just, I'm looking at your pictures right now, so you can just wave at me. And let's join Susan Nelson. And Susan, you can now unmute, and I'm going to add you to the spotlight. Hey there, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, John Muir. My question is about if you ever paint a white bird with white paint, and does it make a difference about what kind of medium you're using, gouache or watercolor or acrylic?
Great question. White birds with white paint, white, absolutely yes. I love working on toned paper. Now, if I'm working on white paper, the best white that I will have is the white of my paper. So if I'm coming in with white gouache on, and you know, it's going to be just a little bit muddier. If I want something to be really bright, sparkly, strong white, I want to take advantage of the fact that I am using so if I'm drawing a white bird with toned paper, then I will use the white paint. So let me give you an example of that, and then let me also see if I can find some white birds drawn on white paper. And you'll see there I'm not using that white paint. The paint that I prefer to use for this is white gouache, permanent white gouache. And it's brighter. I find it easier, sort of more opaque than, say, zinc white or some of the other whites that are out there. So let me show you. I'm going to jump over to my document camera again. All right, so here's a little shrike, and this is gray watercolor, and this is white gouache. These are, during the daytime, some African spoonbills. And so I'm using the white gouache to create a generally white bird, but then you notice that I'm also kind of using the color of the paper to be my shadows and putting more of the white gouache in the places that are getting more direct sun. So you're seeing more of the color of the paper coming through. Here's a little stork. Ah, these little white birds down here. That's just a little bit of white gouache under the feet of those birds. Looking out an airplane window at cloud patterns. That's white gouache on top of blue watercolor. And looking at sort of surf and waves, the waves here are white gouache on top of toned paper. It's not as, here's one more, there are some waves coming in. White gouache really pops very well on a piece of toned paper. However, on white paper, sorry, walking across the room again, grabbing another journal. Let's see here. Who will we call? How about you? I think that this one has. Yep. So here, this little downy woodpecker is there's a lot of gray here in its tummy. That's watercolor, but it's still reading as white, especially because there's this very dark brown next to it. So this is white instead of gray because this is really dark back here. Let's see if there's any other white birds in here. I would pick a book with very few little white marks in it. Yeah, here, this is white of the paper. So it's generally speaking, you're going to be using the white of your paper for watercolor. Hold on a sec. Let me just grab a couple other journals. Yeah. Here, looking at a waterfall, a little block diagram of a waterfall. The white is again the white of the paper. You won't be able to get as bright. Let's see here. More white objects. Yeah. So this is, zoom back, this waterfall here is the same waterfall that I'm drawing in a different sketch in this other book. Hold on. I'll show you the same waterfall drawn with two different, here you go. So this was, in February, the water is running much faster. There's more water in the waterfall. But again, the white is just your paper. This was then in August. The same waterfall. Now it's just a couple streaks of white gouache coming down. A much mellower little waterfall experience. Let me find one more. See if there's any other whites. It's really fun to do white things on toned paper though. Because here, if you want to make, like this is a really clear pattern. It's this C pattern. This one here on its back, there's this dark stripe down the back, and then there are these white braces on either side. And that's a really neat pattern. But here what I have to do is to create that by not putting down white. It's nice when I see white making a pattern to be able to draw that pattern on my piece of paper. But I can't do that on white paper. In white paper, I have to draw the black that's adjacent to it to get those sorts of things. And that's why drawing a waterfall in a waterfall with gouache or a white colored pencil. Here I just started with a white colored pencil. And you can do the same with gouache. You draw in the shape of the waterfall, and then you can fill in all the rocks around it. And that's so much easier than the approach to of the waterfall when I have to create all the darks around it myself. I don't know who put their hand up first, but I see on my screen that Susan and Valerie and Lily have their hands up, but I haven't heard from Lily before, so I'm going to bump Lily to the front of the line, then we'll join Susan and Valerie. Lily, thank you so much for joining us. You're going to, let's see, what do I do?
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Okay, great.
Hi, thank you so much again for hosting this. It's been amazing to just access all the content that you've put out there. And I've just appreciated that so much. It's totally sparked my interest and excitement about everything about watercolor, about drawing. I used to do it so much as a kid and I stopped for so long and now I'm totally back into it. And it's all thanks to you. So I just am so thankful. But anyway, yeah, so my question is about shadow colors, and I'm always a little bit lost in terms of where to start. Do I start with mixing together two more primary colors to make a mixture that is toward gray, or start with kind of like the nice neutrals, like for instance, in your palette, shadow violet or Payne's gray or neutral tint? And I'm just wondering if you have a philosophy where you usually start.
Yeah. So why don't I show you my system and then how I augment it, and then I'll also sort of show you what I don't recommend doing, and also show you how to make mixed blacks really easily. So
Okay.
now you'll hear people say all sorts of different things about blacks and using black paint in your palette. Some watercolorists will say never use black, and they're really adamant about this. And the reason is that people will be like, they're drawing some street scene, and this building's wall is in shadow, and then they get black, and then they put their the lamp black in a dilute mixture all over the side of it. Lamp black is basically soot. It's soot. It's soot from a lamp, and so you're like, and you just rub this soot all over your painting, and it makes it really dull and kind of meh. And where they could have done, if they had mixed that, then there'd be a little bit of these different colors in it, and you get a shadow color that's much more alive. Sometimes when I am out in the field sketching, mosquitoes are biting, these sort of things, I like to reach for some black. Like, I want some black on the back of my chickadee now. Give me some black on the head of my chickadee. And I will, so I can just reach for that and kind of go like, whoop, okay, now you've got black on your head. But if there's going to be a large area of it, and that if it's going to be kind of a dynamic part of the picture, I'm probably a lot better off mixing a black. I'll show you how I mix blacks and kind of what my go-to shadow color is. So let me jump over to jump over to the camera again. Whoop, and right, so I have an object here, and I want it to be in shadow. My go-to thing, or if I'm making a bunch of scientific illustrations, I want something easy and reliable. I reach for Daniel Smith's Shadow Violet, and what it is, it's a mixture of blues and purples, and it makes sort of a nice sort of gray color, and that works great. And what's kind of fun about that is that I can then paint over this with a bunch of different colors, and it will end up looking cool. So if I want this object to be yellow, or if I want this object to be blue or green, actually, you get to pick which color it should be. What color do you want this little object here? I'm putting in a little bit of a core shadow in here. We might have turned off your ability to speak.
How about orange? Lily says, how about orange? Okay, or yellow. All right, orange or yellow. Or an orangey yellow. Or a yellowy orange. All right, so let's do that. I'm going to get this dry. Dry. Now, Lily, do you want it to be a shiny object or a dull object?
Let's do a shiny object since
Shiny
we did
object.
that earlier.
So I'm going to leave one place white paper to be my highlight. And so I am going to just paint this right over that color that I have. And I'm going to leave a little place here for a highlight. And I'm going to then lift out a little bit of paint because I want center light up in here. And oops, we're way far away from that. Sorry about that. Zoom down a little bit. And maybe I'll even add some more kind of orange to this. That shadow violet plays nicely with other colors. And so what I'll do is I'll put in my shadow violet first, and then come over that with other colors. Put in a reflected light right there by lifting out a little bit. Let's put in a little bit more of the center light by lifting out. What I'm doing is just taking a clean brush, wiping it, and there we go. And so it feels a little bit shinier because there's a little highlight in there, and that's fun. So I put in shadow violet first. Let's see if I can get just a little bit more down here. It's kind of fun. Now if I put some black in there as a shadow, that would be like really gunky. But purples, especially in yellows, purples make really great shadows. Now, if I want to mix a black, the best way to do that is to, on your palette, find some dark brown and find some dark blue. And so I'll do this with two examples. One is I'm going to take some raw umber and mix it with some ultramarine blue, and that will make a black. But you'll see that it will have a little bit of kind of sparkly shining back at us. And where's my ultramarine blue? You're right there. And that has made this black. And what's neat about that is that it is a, because it has those base colors in it, you'll see some places there'll be a little bit more of one kind of, and I've sort of remixed it a little bit, and here's some more of this area here is coming in with a little bit more blue. And I can mix more brown into it, and then it sort of cools it or warms it. But it's a very nice dark color. You see more of the blue here, you see more of the brown there, and that's much more interesting than if I took, say, neutral tint and just made a wall of that. It's not going to be any variation in that. Another really, if I want this to be even darker, then one of my wonderful dark browns is Bloodstone Genuine. Bloodstone Genuine on its own looks like this. Nope, you can't see that. Looks like that. And in greater concentration makes really, really dark. Similarly, in Datherone Blue is this really dark blue. So you get Bloodstone Genuine and Datherone Blue together, they will make for you a black that is really, can go really, really dark. And let's say I want a little bit more, that's a little bit, maybe a little bit too on the blue side, so I'm going to mix a little bit more Bloodstone in there. And there it's more black. Isn't that dark?
Wow.
But there will be places where, you know, the more of the warm bloodstone shows through. There'll be places where more of the cool indanthrone shows through. And so when you get to see it actually live, you sort of, there's a play of colors. So just take a dark blue and a dark brown, you will get dark colors. You'll get a dark value thing as a result of that. And then that will, you can mix that with, you know, that'll be much more interesting and satisfying than what you would get out of just the neutral tint. The neutral tint can go very black, right? So when I want, you know, black, you know, there's neutral tint being black. And it's handy, it's useful. Sometimes the mosquitoes are biting, and golly, I just want to have some black. Can I? Yes, you can. It's okay. Well, did that answer your question?
Yes, that was great. Thank you so much.
Super. Thank you so much for joining us, and we're really glad to have you with us. Is this the, have I not been paying attention, or is this the first time you've gotten to share?
No, this is my first live class, so I'm very happy to be here.
Welcome. We're really, really happy to have you with us.
I am so happy to be here. But yeah, I won't steal the stage from anybody else with their questions. So
All right.
Thank you again.
Well, we're delighted to have you here.
Thank you.
So now let's join Susan. Hey, Susan, you can unmute now.
Hey, this is great. I just was thinking about some things as we were going through this that I thought maybe I would sort of just like, I don't know, not necessarily ask, but like highlight.
Yes.
Because one thing that I'm noticing, especially as you were showing us, you know, those bits of your journal that have, you know, examples of this you know, using whitewash versus what I think all these things, is that we talked about all of these different ways that the light and the shadow interact on these objects, which is really, really cool, because it's one of these things where I can like, you know, as you're saying these, I'm like nodding along, like, yeah, that makes sense. I've noticed that, but keeping track of all that when I don't think I've ever tried to keep track of all those things when I'm actually drawing or painting something, and it's a lot. But what I noticed is, and this is not a call out or anything, what I noticed is in your journal pages that you're showing us, for the most part, you're not doing anything that complicated. You're just putting some shadows in where there's shadows and some highlights for the highlights. And it's sort of, I don't know, like this is the thing I've been like kind of, you know, this is my growth edge, or one of is like figuring out how to kind of simplify or not make things too complicated when I'm in the field. Because this is the thing I'm constantly struggling with, because I want to know every single detail, but the thing is moving. And sometimes, this is the worst part, is sometimes the thing has gone away or is moving too fast, and I don't try and sketch it because I know that I won't have time to get the details.
Yeah. And
So I need to like train myself to, you know, it's okay to keep it simple. I don't have to get all the details. I should put something on paper, you know, and then in the times when I have the luxury of more time and the thing that's not moving, I can I can pay attention to all these extra things, and let's get the bounce light in. Let's do all those things.
Absolutely. So on that point of keeping it simple, that's right. And I want to direct folks to Robin Lee Carlson's Shadows as a way of, like, if you want to realize like how much you can do and say with shadows, check out Robin Lee Carlson. We'll be talking at Wild Wonder. We've got a recording of an interview with her. She's got a great new book out. But let me go grab a book of John Busby sketches, because like John Busby is like super economy of line, right? And I think what you'll see is that it looks like you're just going, all right, there's a little gray in there, but actually there's a choice in there, right? About where he's kind of suggesting these marks. And if you were to add like one thing to your game so you're not overwhelmed by all of this, let's add reflected light. Let's add like just one, if you're gonna do like one little thing, let's put in reflected light and let's take a look. And I'm gonna walk over there, so I'll be back in just a second. And I'm gonna get bust some Busby on us. Oh no. This actually will be faster. Because recently Valters and I did that big deep dive geek out with about how awesome John Busby is. He's a bird illustrator for people who
They
have
has already posted the link to that class.
oh, right on top of it.
That was really awesome. Both of those classes were awesome.
And here we go. Yep, here I go. And I think that what we're going to see is I'm going to play this in the window. I am now going to come here and I'm going to share screen. There it is. All right. So, wow. So what's kind of going on here? There's no real variation in that shadow. But this is something which we actually didn't get to, is notice the way that this shadow curves here. A cast shadow will describe the form of the object that it is cast on. And you can sort of see how the shadow is wrapping around there. And let me see if, yeah, look at this, look at this. Here's just these gulls and they're flapping along. And you go like, oh, you just, in the shadow area, you put in little lines there. But look right here and here, there is the core shadow and there's the reflected light from the ocean below.
I mean, this was just, when you had that whole class, I was just blown away, and I continue to be. Look how few like pencil mark. There's nothing on the paper.
Right. That's right.
There's nothing. It's perfect. It's amazing. Yeah. That's, in 30 years, that's something to aspire to. I'll keep working at that.
Right.
But yeah, that is yeah, really great.
But isn't that cool? So so there's real this isn't just marks on the side of the head, but here it's intentionally not going here, it's intentionally not going there. And that is just his little shadow scribble has been so practiced by observation that he can get that. Let me see if yep, so here on this shadow here, just a little wash, it's not coming all the way to the edge. You're just letting, you have a little bit of reflected light there. think how easy it would be to make that shadow come all the way there. And look at these little shadow lines in there. They're not hitting the edge. Whoa, in these fast sketches, John Busby has made it just habit to leave a little bit of room for reflected light. I think that these lines here are just suggesting where the core shadow is. Let's see. Some reason my screen has frozen. Let me. But yeah, let's just look here on the throat, right in there. A little bit of reflected light going on, because John Busby is the bomb.
On that crane on the sort of middle right there, you can see on the belly, the
Yeah,
reflected light is separating the wing from the edge of the belly.
yes. And then they've got a core shadow kind of
Yeah.
just suggested up in there. Whoa. That is just, that's impressive.
Yeah, I need
Right.
to give me some more John Busby in.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm now after that wonderful class with Walters, I've been been in contact with John Busby's daughter.
Oh, wow.
And she sells some of John Busby's drawings as well as John Busby's books. So I'm going to buy those through her to help support her in honor of her dad.
That's wonderful.
Isn't that cool? Mm-hmm.
I was going to see what I can get from my library. I may have abused my interlibrary loan privileges with Keith Brocky, I think you'd recommended at some point, and I went and demanded all of his books, and they found me a couple of them. So
That's right.
those are great. But yeah, now I'm gonna have to go. Okay, now I want this art. But
so the reason I think that some careful studies of shadows are useful is as studies to get us to think more carefully about those shadows, so that when we're out in the field, we can be closer to having some of those marks be on autopilot for us.
But something else I was observing, because putting cast shadows is something I do sometimes, just kind of for fun, and just to, and if I have a very like intricate bug or something like that, and I've not put a background, but I'll put like a cast shadow to like make it look as if it's on the page, because I feel like number one, it really like it's not really difficult to get, to sort of invent it if it's just on paper. But if you're careful about it, you can start to show where that thing is in relation to the paper, because if part of your bug is very close to the paper, that cast shadow is right there adjacent to it. If part of your bug is higher up, that cast shadow is going to be further away if your light's from the side. If you don't mind, I was showing my wasps before, but I was thinking about that when I was doing this guy here, because I thought, okay, the abdomen is very close to the paper, but over here, then the antenna are sort of lifting away. So the angle that you see their shadow is different, because this tip is farther from the paper than the shadow is, or I'm sorry, than the base is.
Yeah.
So like I would definitely advocate for everybody just to throw in some cast shadows when you have a sort of a complicated form that you're not showing in a background, just to like, because it's you can just sort of do it with the same outline as the shape as the shape you've already made, so you can kind of make it up and kind of cheat, but it works really well. So
I think that's
but
great.
yeah, now I gotta do. I'll work on some bounce light, but I also got to work on worrying about one thing at a time when I'm in the field, so I can do things fast.
Yeah, I'm trying to find I actually had some correspondence with John Busby when I was working on my How to Draw Birds book. And he, let me see if I can pull that up for you, because he had this wonderful thing. If you look at a bunch of his sketches of, you know, birds on cliffs and things, sometimes you can see the shadow of another bird flying across the cliff, or a bird will be flying past the cliff and you can see its shadow. He will intentionally include that as a way of showing reference of where an object is to its shadow. And I'm going to see just in my Gmail here if I can. Oh, that's the support button. I feel like a Luddite. Oh, here it is, the little search bar, DUSBY. Maybe I sent that with a different. If I can find it. Oh, wait.
I remember one from when you did the class. There was one that the adapted had.
No, this was stuff that
and there was a shadow of another one or something.
Yeah. This was stuff that he had sent to me. Oh, wait a minute. Here's a bunch more. Oh yeah, here we go. Here is we're gonna just do the screen share again. And there we go. Are you folks seeing a little cormorant poking its head up?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So yeah, look out here in the background. Is that a reflection or is that a shadow? That may be a reflection on this one, but yeah, look at
I'm
these.
interpreting it as a reflection, I think.
And that tells you that your relationship to this surface then has a relationship with this. And look at these little shadows here of these birds, these gulls going across the field. That gives them, like, this one is closer, this one is further from the ground, this one is really high up, right? Isn't that neat? So, oh, look at that right down there. Oh, another brace flying over you. And look at those colors in that shadow. There's blues and purples, all those little neat things going up.
I think maybe you're talking about a different one than we're seeing. We're still seeing the sort of cormorant in the foreground. And a
Oh,
bunch
really?
of background. It's all in black and white.
Okay, I need to stop my share. And I'm going to try to share again. Boom. There we are. Now you seeing gulls flying along?
Yes.
All right. See how there's each one of those has their little shadow above it. It says, yeah, that's the relationship. That's the relationship. There you are.
And the ones to the right are farther from the ground because they're farther from their shadows.
Yeah. So, and then here, this little lovely shadow flying along right here. Oh, that's really cool.
If you go to the previous one, this one, I remember when you showed that one in that class with Walters, and a bunch of us were speculating in the chat. We see the shadows of these two, the gulls that are screaming at each other, and there's a shadow of another one that's must be up on the cliff somewhere watching them.
Oh,
that
yes.
we don't see, but its
Well,
shadow
actually,
is showing up.
Yeah.
There.
So here's their shadows, and this is their reflection. I think no. What's going on?
I think I interpreted this as all of it is a shadow because there's a third gull in the shadow there, and so I interpret it as that gull's up on the ridge that we can't see, but it's the shadows coming in and is casting a shadow of all three of them. But then there's just a sort of a darker area underneath where the gulls are.
And this is the raccoon watching both of them. So these are, oh, look at, yeah. So see, the shadow gives you the relationship to the surface.
And they have the shape of the shadow isn't just repeating the silhouette of the one on the right. The way the bell curves is different in the shadow than what we see because it's
Mm.
three-dimensional and
Mhm.
it's casting a shadow on a flat wall. It's like, so we're not seeing, you're not just copying the same shape of the bird that you see and putting it there.
Mhm.
You're actually making the shadow help you understand the three-dimensional form. Shadows are fun. I don't want to like I love talking about John Busby, but I note that some folks have noted in the chat that Valerie has had her hand up for a while, and
Oh, okay,
I want
yeah,
to make
yeah.
sure that I'm
Thank you.
hogging all the spotlight geeking out about John Busby, even though it's fun. But
Let me see. How can I stop share? There, stop share. Stop share. There. Thank you. Hey, Susan, thank you so much for being conscientious of that. And I love, well, I got your email. We will talk about a curiosity
sure, great.
deep dive.
Sounds great.
Thank you so much, Susan.
Thank you.
And remove that spotlight. We're gonna join Valerie. Valerie, hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
Hi. Good, I'm good, thank you. So this is a little bit off topic,
That's
but
okay. So am I.
okay. Your Downy Woodpecker
Yes.
sketch, you had some kind of amazing metadata circle with,
Oh.
and I know if I'm asked today, I'll never see it again.
Oh, that's really fun. What that was. Hold on a second.
Yes.
All right. This was this piece of paper is a henge. It is if you take a toothpick of precisely this length and glue it in the center of the page here, orient this page to north, and then on the solstices and then what you can do is you can look at the length of the shadow and as the day progresses. So here's 9:24 in the morning, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 15, 5, 11. These lines here are the length of the shadow at that time. And then you go as you go out on this, and the direction here that the shadow is pointing, see this one here is pointing to 250 degrees.
I can't see it, let me see.
Oh, sorry. This one here is pointing to 250 degrees.
Okay.
Or this one here crosses the line close to 270 degrees. That is the declination of the direction that it is pointing. And the circle that it is in is how many degrees this is up in the sky. How many degrees the sun is up in the sky on the equinox here. So it is a way of recording. All you have to do is take this piece of paper and orient it to north. Don't have it blow around in the wind. Have a post of the right height, which again is indicated by the little arrow on the bottom. And then if the shadow goes out to the between the 50 and the 40 line, that means it's about 45, the sun is 45 degrees up in the sky. And if you're thinking, gee, I wonder how I could get such a chart, because that's kind of handy, right? If I go to John Muir Laws and go to Nature Journal, or actually maybe for teachers, Sun Shadows. For teachers, Sun Shadows, exploring the solstice and the equinox. Here we go. And
Okay.
then there's a bunch of different ways you can geek out on solstices and equinox here, including, hold on a second.
I think it's activity 3, step 1. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, I looked it up on my phone while I'm on my iPad here. That's activity 3, sun
Yeah.
target.
Yeah, that's right. So it's the sun target, and there are several different ones. This is Shirley and David Adams were two people who kind of went down the rabbit hole with this with me and helped develop these. And there's, if you're on the equator, this is the best one. Equator to 45 degrees latitude in the northern hemisphere, low latitudes in the northern or southern hemisphere, mid latitudes in the northern and southern hemisphere, and then we've got another one for high latitudes in the northern or southern hemisphere. Then you pick whichever one of these is best for you, and then you print out that sheet. So say mid latitudes in the southern hemisphere, here's your chart, right? And so down on the bottom, it shows you want your toothpick to be exactly this length. And then this is how many degrees it is up in the sky. This is the direction, and here is where you the north arrow where you want to orient the thing to north. So you can draw in your declination for your site, and then orient your compass to that.
Okay. But you can do this any day of the year,
You
right?
can do this any day of the year, but it's especially fun on solstices and equinox.
Mm. And eclipse, evidently.
Well, this one I did mine on the equinox. We've also done these on solstices, and it's actually really fun to think about what would the line look like at different points on the globe at different points in the year. And that's I think we may have just nerd sniped Susan on this one.
Okay.
But that's a ton of fun. But what's really cool is that they calculated the widths, the diameter of these circles to give you the altitude of the sun in the sky. Isn't that's just brilliant? Because of course, the shorter the shadow, the higher it is above you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that is. And then what I did is, so I had that and then glued it into my journal, and then just took other notes right over that, because these woodpeckers were doing cool things during the event.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. Yeah, that's
And then that evening, well, actually a few days later, there's this nice sort of Saturn and Jupiter moment in the sky. And so that was fun.
okay.
Jack, actually, a couple of questions came up while you were sharing Paperhenge. One question was Matthew Helms was asking to the edge of the arrow or the line in between.
To the edge of the arrow or the line in between. Can we clarify the question for me a little bit? Oh yeah, to the edge of the arrows, to the tips of the arrows, for the length of the post.
For the toothpick, yeah.
Arrow tip to arrow tip.
Okay, thank you. because there was a little bit of discussion. I wanted to make sure I got it right. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, because the height of that post is critical. Otherwise, your estimate of the height in the sky will be off. Oh, does mine say eclipse? I'll bet it does.
There was an
Let me see. Equinox.
And then there was another question about equinox. Are the points in a straight line on your paper henge?
Oh, no, they make a gentle curve. They make a gentle curve. And let's see here. I think that they did. Hold on. Yeah, they are. If you look at from the tip of this one, you're going up and then down again. But if you were on the tropic on the equinox, or the equator on the solstice, then Susan, would we get a straight line? oh, can't speak. Oh, got it.
Sorry, I remuted myself, but then I can't. Well, my prediction had been that, and based on, and this is the part, yeah, I nerd sniped myself on this back on the solstice and stayed up until 3 a.m. Which is difficult when you are wanting to do things relating to the sun, because then if you stay up all night, then you need to sleep when the sun, it's a problem. But yeah, I think my prediction ultimately had been that no matter where you are on the planet, except for the poles where very weird stuff happens, but we won't look at that. But no matter where you are, you should get a straight line on the equinox. And then on different days, you'll end up with something that, a curve, which should be a hyperbola, and the actual like sort of bendiness of would that be called the eccentricity? I guess hyperbola said eccentricity. The actual amount of bendiness of the hyperbola depends on both your latitude and what day of the year it is, I think. But I haven't tested it yet. And I don't know if my prediction is right or not.
What sometimes happens is if you move your paper, then you'll get a line in a different direction. So it is possible that there is also some operator error in this.
I think the best way to
what we got to do is this next equinox be on top of this.
I was actually, thank you for, I was going to say, but it's really close.
That's right.
We need to do something. But I was thinking, the other thing to do then, if you want to have a better chance of figuring out whether there is on some day a straight line or very close to, would be to do this for several days before and after, or perhaps maybe a week before and after the equinox, and see if you get a curve that bends a different direction on each of those days, before and after, because the shape of that curve ought to be something that's you sort of take advantage of continuity. The mathematician in me says no, I'm abusing that term, but I'm actually using it appropriately. But basically, over the course of over on different days, you're going to get a curve that's going to sort of ought to straighten out and then turn into this one. If those are the curves you get. So the point is, if you end up with on one, like a week before the equinox, you get a curve like this, and a week after the equinox, you get a curve like this, there probably had to be some day in the middle of that where you got a straight line.
That's right. That's
probably.
True. That's right. That's right.
So that would be that would help to sort of overcome the operator error, because yeah.
Or would it be that the straight line, if you're on the tropic, would be on the Tropic of Cancer or Capricorn, then on that day you would get a straight line. But if you were further north than that, it would then that your straight line day would be on a different day.
Well, that's a good question. So if a week before the equinox you had a curve like this, and a week after the equinox you also had a curve like this, even if they weren't thinker, then you wouldn't have any evidence that somewhere in between those there's a straight line.
Right, but then
So
at some point you
that
probably
would-
are
that
going to be
would
going back the other
suggest
way.
that
When
like
is that date for your latitude? Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah. So my prediction is that it doesn't matter what your latitude is, you will get a straight line on the equinox.
Okay. All
Wherever
right.
you are, but I don't know. So we'll need to try.
Oh, I think we need to play with this. I think we need to play with this.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
for folks who are just kind of wondering what's going on, this is what we call nerd sniping,
Yes.
where we kind of get our curiosity going on something, and then we so on the 22nd of September, we're going to have our next little equinox, right? So I say we have another party. On that day, I'm probably going to be spending the entire day at my daughter's school with these sheets and a giant post marking these things with chalk, and all the kids are going to have their own. If the teachers want to play. And I hope they will. But I think that then what we should do is we should have, we'll figure out a way for people who can get together to get together. And maybe we just sort of have an open rolling meeting. And at some point I'll come back from school with my papers, and we'll get together. So,
but I would suggest though, that would challenge folks, anyone who's interested, to try. So I mean, anytime before the equinox, but let's just say like a week. I don't know how much change there is because I haven't tried it yet. But over the course of however many days, but say a week before the equinox, give this a try. See what kind of results you get. Do the same process that Jack did in this journal. Try that before the equinox, and then on the equinox, and then after the equinox.
Oh, I love that idea. I love that idea. And if we could get people doing that at all sorts of different latitudes.
Also note that if you do this if you take just one measurement on the equinox, if you do it at solar noon, as we've discussed before, then you can determine from that, that is measure the position of the sun and the angle. I keep calling it the angle of elevation, but there's a proper term for that, which is the what? Declination is
the uppiness.
Let's call it the uppiness. Anyway, measure that, and on the equinox, that should be able to tell you what your latitude is, as we discussed.
That's right. And is it declination?
I got that wrong. Yeah, essentially that's good, because declination would be down, right? So that'd be this. Actually, this is the angle you want. The angle from the vertical would give you. I should do it this way, right? This angle to the sun, that should give you your latitude.
Cool. There's more fun to come.
Yes.
More fun to come. So now we're going to join Sagata. Susan, thank you so much for that. And Ray Bonto. Let's join Ray Bonto. Spotlight. Ray Bonto, it is great to see you, my friend. I hope that all is well with you.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm doing really well. In just a few minutes, I'm going to grab a bite to eat, and then I'm going to be going over to my daughter's school, and I am going to be, I've got all these multicolored toothpicks, and I'll be hiding those, just spreading those out on the lawn in front of the school, and their 7th grade class is going to come out. We're going to try to find, they've got 20 of each color of toothpick. We're going to try to find as many of those as we can, and then we're going to figure out what does that tell us about sort of unguided processes in natural selection. So we're going to be toothpick hunters, and at the start, all the toothpicks, they are on an island with no predators, and they're all doing fine. And then we're going to introduce this pack of ferocious toothpick-eating predators into it, and we're going to see what the results are for the impact of this selection pressure on which traits remain, and then think about how that would kind of transfer down through the generation. So I'm about to do some hardcore Darwinian geeking out.
That's amazing.
That's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
What you got going on?
Yeah. I just decided to have a little Tyrannosaurus.
Yes, yes, the little arms. The I saw the other day this person had a sticker in the back of their car,
Yeah.
and it had this picture of Tyrannosaurus, and you know those kind of grabbers that people use for picking up trash?
Yeah.
The Tyrannosaurus had one of those, and the Tyrannosaurus was like, "I'm unstoppable!" And this, I thought it made me so happy. But yeah, the idea of a Tyrannosaurus getting, hold on, I'm going to bring Avea on here. Yeah, Tyrannosaurus had this little grabber and was just so psyched. So I like your Tyrannosaurus joining Blobby there.
Yeah.
What's going on for you, my friend? All right. Yeah, mad points for Tyrannosaurus joining Blobby there. Oh.
Yeah. Then I like to do stuff with values with color. But yeah, I did this quick sketch of the sleeping one before I did the main one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just messing around with Blobby is such a great way to get our brain to wrap around shapes.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really fun. Thank you so much for showing me that.
Okay.
I'd like to also now join Jack. Jack, how are you doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I've got a lot of stuff. I'll try to be quick though.
Awesome. Let me clear my screen. We'd love to see what you've been up to.
I was really geeking out the other day with just not anything specific, but we saw a lot of hummingbirds in our butterfly garden, and I named one of them Mini Peregrine because I caught a little snapshot of him. Like I was able to capture and draw him as he dove right over my head, right here.
Oh, whoa, look at that.
And his wings were tucked like a little peregrine falcon.
Oh, that is so cool. Mini, I'm going to name him Mini Peregrine. Yes, absolutely.
And then we saw a masked bee, which I've never seen one of those before, but my little identification card here of bees helped me out with that one.
Oh, that's cool. And you saw a bald eagle?
Yeah.
Okay, so mad points on this. What I love, just want to give you, you now have kind of gotten to a higher level of naturalist geeking out, because what I just saw there was you went like, look, here's this cool angle on the hummingbird, and there's this masked bee. I've never seen one of those before. Like, yeah, I saw a bald eagle, but there's this masked bee, and look at this cool angle on the hummingbird. And what most people are like the bald eagle, and they don't see anything else. But you're doing some really strong geeking out here, and so I love in that little interaction there. If you're like, look at this great angle, I'm gonna name him Mini Peregrine, and here's masked bee, and like, oh yeah, there's a bald eagle. You didn't even mention it, right? So, boom, you've got naturalist chops.
A little turn, peeking in, say hello.
Hold on. Let me remove my spotlight so we can see that. Oh, the little highlight on the beak. That's cool. I like the minimalist way of handling the eye. Just a little bit of a highlight, a little bit of reflection on the bottom edge of the eye there. And oh, that's really turning out well.
Yeah, and I've really been liking Robin's way of with that felt tip pen, just quick, loose. So this is from that class.
Yes. Isn't she inspiring?
Yeah, and so I've been doing a lot of drawings with that. These are just flowers from our yard that I found, and I was doing that technique.
Oh. Hey, would you like to? I bet if you want to, we could arrange for you to be able to meet Robin. She's really, really cool. If you want to sort of set up a discussion, it'd be fun to, if you're doing a bunch of stuff in her style, I think she would love to to meet you. You have been putting in some crazy pencil miles here, Jack. This is great. What else is
Yeah,
going on?
and yeah, I named him this butterfly I saw the other day was crazy. Its wings were all ripped up, like super ripped up, and I noticed that he like but not like most butterflies, he was mostly gliding, instead of flapping his wings.
That is really, really cool. You know, I wonder if, you know, some these little ones will they've got birds going after them, and ones with longer lifespans get their wings really shattered. I've never thought about how does that affect their flight style. What a cool thing to explore.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a total rabbit hole there, isn't there?
Right? Yeah. And we have an old pear tree at the bottom of our hill, and it's starting to drop its weird looking pears. And I was journaling one of those the other day.
Oh, that's really fun. That's cool. How do they taste?
We've never eaten them. They're kind of gnarly, and there's a lot of flies on them, even when they're still on the tree. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they're fit to eat, and so we don't eat them. And then this morning, this was really weird. This morning we took a little walk to Nature Journal, and we saw this wasp. It was all black. Its legs were orange. I didn't see it too much, but my mom and my brother were watching it, and it had a little hole that it had dug in the dirt, and it had 2 spotted lanternflies dead around the hole, and then apparently some other grasshopper type bug also. And we're wondering if it had killed all those bugs with its poison and its stinger, and it pulled the grasshopper into the hole. He had it in his legs, and he pulled it backwards into the hole, came out of the hole, and filled the hole in with dirt.
Oh man, that is such an amazing observation. And also it shows that when you find a phenomenon, you're hanging with it. Like other people go like, yeah, there's this wasp next to a hole, right? But you sat there to get the whole story. That is so cool.
And I've read that some muddapper wasps will make a hole, put a bug in the hole, lay their egg on the bug, and cover up the hole, so that when the egg hatches, it eats the bug and then comes out as an adult, or whatever stage.
That's what my understanding is, that when they get the bug, so they sting the bug, but it doesn't kill the bug, it just paralyzes it, because otherwise the little snack for baby rots. But if it's just paralyzed, it's sitting there going, I can't move, but oh, you hatched. Oh, look, that's so sweet. Oh, wait, what are you doing? Hey, cut that out. No. Oh, no, you didn't. No. Right? And on some of these species, the little junior who goes to snacking will first eat non-vital organs. Man, the horror movie Alien, I understand that the creator of the life cycle of the monster in that was inspired by parasitoid wasps.
Yeah. And while that was happening, we were observing these really interesting mushrooms that had been eaten at. And so it had bites taken, but the bites were, it looked like two big bites, but if you look closely, there's little tiny chips taken away. And way back when I started this journal, I was observing a mushroom, and while I was watching it, there was a slug at the mushroom. So I'm wondering if it was a slug that ate it.
Oh,
And
what an
for
interesting
even more
thought.
for even more proof, there was glistening slug slime in the moss around the mushroom. So it probably was a slug.
Interesting, interesting. I like how you're looking for you're coming up with hypotheses, collecting clues, and every clue we have, it can bring us closer towards that. But seeing that little slime around there, makes that hypothesis more likely. That's
Yes.
right.
And last thing,
Cool.
I really like the blobbies.
The blobbies are just fun.
I've never heard of that before, but I'm gonna be drawn onto them.
Yeah, you can make them all sorts of crazy shapes. And then sometimes you can make them sort of critter-like, or they don't have to be, but it'll just train your brain to think with volumes and shadows. And it also just helps to draw the contour lines around the blobbies. And then you can put shadows in with those. The blobbies are totally fun. And then you can draw the Tyrannosaurus next to it like right on top.
And that was it.
Oh, hey, you've been doing some really exciting thinking. Now, I'm going to bring our mad botanist on. Ivea, isn't tonight, did I hear you correctly that tonight is the insect
Yeah.
is
Yep.
bug night?
Yep.
In that, is there any way to get our images to our bug guide or questions to our bug guide?
Yes, I believe that there is. She says that she's not nearly as active on Instagram, though she is on Instagram. She's also active on Facebook. Her name is Trisha Nichols. And hold on. And at the end of her every video, she leaves ways of contacting her, not to mention that she also has, what is it called? Live chat enabled during the bug nights. So you can ask her all sorts of questions on there and even make suggestions for future bugs that we do in case she happens to have it in her collection. And she's been teasing us for weeks now about how she's getting her hands on a pepsid, also known as a tarantula wasp. So yes, we're very excited about this.
So I was thinking, Jack, I don't know what your do you have tomorrow off school?
We just actually today was our first day of school. We homeschool, so but tomorrow we'll be doing school too.
Okay. I was just thinking that might be an interesting thing to look at. I think that there's some deep geeking out the way that you like to do that it will be happening in that, and they'll be talking about this wasp that is this spider hunting specialist.
Tarantula wasp.
Also called the tarantula hawk.
They're so cool. Brian Higginbotham made us draw one once for the whole sting of the wild thing. Apparently they hurt when they sting.
Have you heard about the person who did the research on which stinging insects have the worst sting?
Where's my book, actually? I got the book recently. Let me find it for you, and I'll hold it up 1 second.
Went around and getting stung by the bullet ant and the tarantula hawk. Like, I haven't tried the tarantula hawk. Let's see what its sting is like. And then putting them on a scale of owiness. Oh, sting of the wild. The sting of the wild. Oh, boy. I mean, that's some commitment to a research project. I mean, and didn't even tarantula hawks and solitary wasps. So he's got a whole chapter on how bad they sting. Isn't that cool?
Now, we're not recommending that you get yourself stung by this wasp, but that's our author down there. Oh man.
Sorry, yes, that's him down in a hole. Can't tell if he's smiling or grimacing, but yes, that's him. Probably doing some kinds of work. There's a lovely up close picture of him being stung by something. I mean, look at that. Look at that.
Wow. Yeah, that's some commitment to your research right there.
Oh.
I mean, isn't that what graduate students are for? So,
but
on a
how would
scale
you
of
know?
1 to 10, how bad would you say that one is?
But then the problem is that each graduate student might have a different threshold of pain. You need the same person so that way you'll have consistent base level research.
Or what you could do is just have like a standard, they would be exposed to the standard series. Like, and now this is a 10, right? Let's get the bullet out. Now you know what a 10 is, so that you're kind of, just to make sure you're calibrated, and you regularly have to re-sting them with the bullet ant, just to make sure that their pain calibration is with your system, or maybe just get them all yourself.
Wouldn't that be like cruelty to interns, though? I don't think that's allowed.
Yeah, there probably are some, I don't know. Wow, it is big fun. So I don't know, Jack, if you can make it to the bug night tonight, you might find that part of your tribe is assembled there. Really impressed with your observations and questions and rabbit hole spelunking there. That is solid curiosity.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, everybody, this is this brings this episode of the Nature Journal Workshop to a close. We're delighted that you all chose to spend this time with us. I want to encourage folks to follow their curiosity wherever that may lead. Yes, be nice to graduate students should you really get into stings. You know, when we, as you saw from Jack's work right there, you know, when you give yourself permission to get really curious about things, you know, these little little things around you, you know, a species of bee that you've never encountered before, they become as exciting or more exciting. The shape of a hummingbird's wings, or even being able to see and record the shape of the hummingbird's wings as it's going by, becomes as exciting or more exciting than seeing a bald eagle fly over. And it's not so much what we see, it's how we see it. It's not what where you go, it's how you look. And I want to, if you give yourself permission, especially, I think also it really helps to kind of have a support group for this kind of curiosity, because, you know, we get really into it, and then there are people out there that are just kind of going like, what? Right? What are you doing? And to kind of be able to kind of come back to this crew, bless you. No, don't worry, you're muted. I lost my train of thought. That's okay. It was a nice train, a lovely locomotive. Wherever it was going, I'm sure it was going to be exciting and fun. Yes.
Was it something to do with Jane Hirschfeld's quote about attentiveness only deepens what it regards?
Ooh, could you send me that quote? I didn't have that quote before, and that is good. Say that again. Drop that on us again.
Attentiveness only deepens what it regards. I believe that there's the full quote. It was something like, here as elsewhere in life, attentiveness only deepens what it regards.
I mean, there's a non-photo blue pencil drop, right?
The funny thing is, though, I thought I learned it from you.
But with my attention span, you might have. That's the great thing about being forgetful, is that you can make new discoveries every day with the same phenomenon.
And the same joy.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Hold on. There's a one other. There's a little bit of. Oh, you've pupated. We've pupated over at Susan's house. So this is good. I mean, what a gift. What a wonderful planet to explore on. And you are you're muted there.
Sorry, I have to admit, I've been keeping an eye on it because it is not actually pupated, but it's getting pretty darn close. And I was hoping that maybe it would actually do it during this. But
So this
we'll
is its
see.
little pose right before the moment.
Yes, and it's actually I got to watch it.
Does it have a
making its
seatbelt
full
on?
girdle and everything. Yeah. Oh, it's got. I watched the girdle making process. It was pretty awesome. I gave it a perfectly nice stick. It didn't want the stick. But we'll see. So anyway, by the next time we meet, I'm sure it will be all pupated. But wait,
Oh, that's fun.
it's just moved. Might be because I'm moving it though. So I don't know. But we'll see.
Of course, now you just brought up my favorite joke, Susan.
Mhm.
What's brown and sticky? A stick.
And with that, dear friends, we'll leave you with that today. Thank you so much for being with us. We look forward to playing with you again. Stay curious. This world is too wonderful to be anything but. And we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you. Thank you so much for helping us with these workshops, Avea.